You're listening to the Jiu-Jitsu Lou podcast, and I'm Lou Temlett. I'm guessing you're having a good day because either you've been on the mats, considering getting on the mats, or maybe taking yourself to train. I'm so happy you're here listening or watching this episode. Please don't tap out before the end. When you're looking for something consistent in life, start training Jiu-Jitsu. I'd like to welcome Rachel Clarke to my podcast. Hi Rachel, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm very pleased that you're joining from the middle of the deep blue sea. For anyone that isn't already following Rachel on Instagram, Rachel, please share your Instagram account.
So I am Rachel. My Instagram is at the Cruising Para. That is because I am a cruise ship paramedic, so a regular paramedic that just works at sea instead.
Amazing. Now, you're not just a paramedic, Rachel. You have an amazing jiu-jitsu story, and I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your journey. So where and when did you start training jiu-jitsu? Because I don't think it's recently.
No, I think I'm quite a long-standing white belt now. So I started training when I was 11. I was living in Kent with my family then. It was just pure luck that I found it, to be honest. It's not like anybody I knew was doing it or I had any links anywhere. I just saw a sign as my mum and I were driving past this gym. It's for MMA classes. And I was like, Mum, can I do that? And she was like, yeah, let's try. So I was going to that for a little while. And as I sort of just got a bit older, I was enjoying more of the jiu-jitsu side of it. So I was training several times a week. I think I was doing up to like 9 hours a week or something. I guess you've got the time when you're a child. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely. Yeah. And then I did that until I was about 16. And then our like family circumstance changed. So we moved. And I tried a couple of gyms then, like in my early 20s or late teens. But I was at that age where, like, I don't know, you're a proper teenager and you're going out, and the gym wasn't quite the same as my home gym and all this sort of stuff. So I wasn't particularly consistent with it. And then in my mid-20s, I was I'd been through university, I'd had lots of house moves, I had a lot sort of going on in my life. And I think maybe inadvertently or naturally, I started thinking, oh, maybe I should start jiu-jitsu again. Whether I knew that was going to be helpful, like for me to settle, I don't know. But I started again in my mid-20s. But apparently I just can't sit still because I've been through a few gyms up until now. But now I'm not affiliated with the gym, and I go to sea for 4 months blocks every twice a year, so 8 months of the year. So I'm away a lot with a sort of ad hoc training schedule, but yeah, that's me. The longest white belt ever, right? If you find someone who's been a white belt for longer, I'd be so interested.
We will see what we can do. So how many years
Like
a white belt?
Years.
19
years. Beat that.
Good. Okay, I think we're all generally lifelong white belters. That's certainly my mindset right now.
That makes me feel better. Yeah.
Amazing. So you've been a white belt forever. I know some of us we're always kind of seeking the next promotion, the next kind of measure on how well we're doing in jiu-jitsu and kind of life in general. How has that felt, not having that marker of progress for so long?
Oh, it's ebbed and flowed, I'll be honest. And I think everybody in the sport will admit at some point, whether they've known it or not, they're chasing a belt or whatever wording it is you want to come out with. Yeah. And I think we've all been guilty of like really wanting it and really chasing it and almost getting fixated on that. But yeah, I've definitely been through that a few times and it's ebbed and flowed. But I think the conclusion I've come to now is that, and I know it sounds very cliche and people will have told every belt chaser this, but you're the one that's doing jiu-jitsu, not your belt. And like, you need to think about what the sport brings to you. And the biggest thing for me was sitting down with myself and saying, like, am I still enjoying the sport? Am I still connecting with people who have a similar interest with me and people I enjoy being around? Yeah. Am I still getting all of the benefits from de-stressing and moving my body and learning something new and like that mental stimulation? Am I still achieving all of that? And the answer is always yes. So don't get me wrong, if I get a blue belt, it will be a great day and I'll be very happy. But I think if I really hone in on what's important for me in jiu-jitsu,
Mm.
it's not that external validation of what I wear, it's what the sport can bring to me. And I think, I'd like to think I'm not the only one that sees it that way. I think we can all dig deep and find something that we love about the sport and why we keep going back. And I think,
Yes.
yeah, it would be lovely, but it's not the be all and end all. And I think it took me a while to understand that the sport is maybe more than that. I don't know.
Yes.
That's
No,
what I think.
I think that's incredibly wise. I think we can
Mm,
all echo the, getting our white belt and, seeing the kind of immediate progress from the kind of spazzy white belt. You're using your strength, you're using your physical abilities, you're going all in. And actually,
yeah.
I think both of us resonate with this is a lifelong career of
Mhm.
training martial arts in the form of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's not a, let's get everything done in the quickest possible time. And I can
Yeah.
wholeheartedly admit, when they go, well, 10 to 15 years to a black belt, that kind of sparks your, okay, let's do this. Let's go as fast as we can. But you and I both know that this is the long game. We are the
Yeah.
tortoise, we are not the hare. And actually, step by step, very slowly, it's okay. And if
Yeah.
we kind of hide inside for a while and don't move anywhere, that's okay too.
Yeah. And even if you are moving and there's nothing externally to show from that apart from, medals or your own progress in the gym, then
Yeah.
so be it. But anecdotally, I will say the only irritating thing is where I do so much traveling and I work in healthcare, I speak to a lot of people all the time.
Yeah.
And people are interested in you and they ask about what you do for fun, and I'll tell them, I do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And people always say, oh, what belt are you? And there is this, I'll be honest, it's
Mm,
my ego wholly. There's a
yeah.
small part of me that cringes every time I go, oh, I'm a white belt. And they're like, oh, and you've been doing it for how long? And I'm like, oh, quite a while. But yeah, I think those people who aren't in the jiu-jitsu community or aren't in the jiu-jitsu world, they'll tell you like, my kids got their black belt in karate, and that's wonderful. I love that for
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
But they're just not comparable. And like
Yeah.
sometimes there's a small part of me that sort of is inside thinking, oh no, but it's not the same. Like,
Yes,
yeah, maybe it's
exactly.
me. I don't know.
No, I completely agree. One martial art ranking is not the same as another martial art, but it's like one individual is not the same as another individual. And I just want to kind of, potentially come back to your medical kind of background. I've
Yeah,
I've now got my broken finger. It looks okay now. It doesn't feel like it's quite in the right way, but like a white belt, you wouldn't treat one white belt like another white belt or another martial art like another martial art if you were treating a
yeah,
broken finger. There are so many variables. It could
yeah.
be broken in a different way, or there could be, I'm a bit squeamish, so I can't talk about bones really poking out of things. Um,
That'll be my world. Don't worry, I'll take care of that.
okay, good, good. Rachel's there with the support from the healthcare side, but I think
Mm,
it's really important to acknowledge that we're all completely individual, and when we
yeah,
start
and that's
to
really sorry.
no,
That's like a really cool part of jiu-jitsu as well. I think like we are all individuals
mm,
when we're practicing or playing, however you want to look at it.
yep,
And you can look at a technique and what's going to work for one body isn't going to work for another. Whether that's like how long your legs are, or how flexible you are, or what type of game you like to play. Like it's so individual,
yeah.
and I think it's just great, isn't it?
Do you think this resonates from your age and experience generally to have this kind of mindset? Because it feels like, when we start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, do the first year or two, I certainly feel very naive to a number of things. But do you think having that 19 years experience has really offered you something different to a white belt that may have got four stripes within the space of 12 months?
Potentially, I've never really thought about it that way, but maybe, yeah. I mean, it definitely, I think, has given me a lot of insight into, again, like I was saying earlier, like what the sport means for me and what I get from it. Especially because I do a lot of traveling to different gyms and things, and I have experienced different ways of training and different cultures and gyms and all this sorts of thing. I think it's given me, more insight on how I feel about the sport and my relationship with the sport.
Yeah.
And I don't say other people's because I can't speak for that, but you sort of see trends in how people like enjoy the sport and things like that. In terms of like my ability,
Mm.
I know I think I do okay, but yeah, I don't really know is the answer.
Well, I think I would observe that the 19 years being a white belt has really served you in some really positive ways in terms of mindset. So I'm going to give you not that you need validation from anybody else, but I admire that tenacity and duration of time to get you to
Mm,
your mindset, that certainly the mindset you're sharing, which I think is just helpful, and hopefully other listeners will be able to kind of resonate and kind of
yeah.
come to peace with themselves, that
Mm,
maybe their comparison of where they should be in their jiu-jitsu journey, it doesn't matter. It's okay, because you're measuring yourself with yourself yesterday, or the progress that you're making with not just your physical ability but your mental ability as well.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think I'm just used to waiting now. I mean, when I was a teenager, I was waiting to turn 16 for my blue belt, but then we moved away, and then I was sort of having it dangled in front of me by coaches, and then I went back to C. So I think, yeah, it's taught me a lot about patience and waiting and actually what's important
Yeah,
in the sport. I think is really nice.
I love it. I love it. Okay,
Mm.
so you mentioned training in different gyms and different cultures. Talk to me about some of those experiences, because I'm excited to hear.
So, do you know what? When I go to different towns and I visit friends and I move around the UK when I'm home, I do like to try and train at different gyms. And at first, that was really, really daunting, especially as a woman and as a white belt. I don't want to say we're unwelcome because that's not untrue, but I think you'll probably relate that we feel certainly as though we're on the back foot in taking up that space in the mat, especially as a guest. And I think at first that was a really difficult thing. But now I've noticed there's a lot of talk, isn't there, about women coming into gyms and how we make women feel included.
Mhm.
And I think my case is obviously quite unique because I am, for want of a better word, experienced in the sport. But I found if you go in with the attitude that you want people to receive you with, then that normally is quite a good
Yeah,
way to do it. Most gyms, to be honest, they're all pretty much the same format, aren't they?
yeah,
It's some form of lineup, some form of warm up, some form of drill, a bit of sparring. You all shake hands at the end and you have a good time.
yeah.
I think I don't know how much of it we as guests, whatever, like manifest in our beings that give us those negative experiences when we travel. I think
Mm,
as long as you go in polite and you go in keen to train, I think that's the really important part.
yeah,
And I think when it comes to being a woman on the mat and how gyms can best make us feel welcome when we come to visit, I honestly think the key is just don't make a big deal of it.
yeah,
And maybe that's really belittling, I'm not sure. But in my experience, when I've been to a gym and I've not been made to feel like the short straw for sparring or drilling, and I've come in and people have said hello, and nobody's going staring because it's a new person and it's a girl. And sometimes if it's other women, I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, I'm here, it's great, and that's fine. But you like we don't need to make a fuss, and I think
yeah,
that's for me is the most welcoming part when I've been to other gyms and the most
yeah,
welcoming type of culture I've experienced
yeah,
personally.
absolutely. What came up for me was being greeted and kind of resonated in the style that you need, rather than what someone else needs for their welcome. It's kind of that respect and acknowledgement. And I think one of the things that got me through my mindset to go and have my first competition in Barcelona, one of the familiar things, like you were saying, that the mats, the routine, the schedule is the same wherever you go in the world. And
Yeah,
I think,
yeah,
part of my mind was at peace, because I knew I'd seen what the competition mats looked like. I'd seen enough stuff
mm,
on Instagram. I'd been to competitions to take in the atmosphere. And actually, wherever you go in the world, it will be the same setup, the same kind of routine, whether it's, IBJJF or any other organizer.
mm,
The kind of concept is the same. And it sounds like when you go to gyms in the UK and maybe around the rest of the world, that the format is very similar, and to take reassurance from that.
Yeah, and I think that's just a really nice thing. Again, it's about consistency, isn't
Yeah.
it? And I think having that constant, especially when you move around so much as I do, I think is just so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like really lucky that I've found the sport and like the outlet, I suppose, to give me that. I think it's just a really nice thing.
Amazing. This is the Jiu-Jitsu Lou podcast with me, Lou Temlett, coming to you from the UK and the middle of the deep blue sea. Go and check out the latest video clips over on ju.jitsu.lu on Instagram. And as you're watching or listening on your favourite podcast platform, I'd really appreciate you dropping the show a rating and review when you get to the end. Today, I'm having a conversation with Rachel Clarke, the cruising para on Instagram, and we're talking about your kind of international long-term white belt experience. Now, tell me, what's been the most kind of I don't know what measure to use, but the most interesting, the most insightful Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym experience wherever you've been around the world?
Are you asking me for a favourite?
Well, whatever measure that's kind of inspired kind of the thought to bring right now. It may have been the worst. I mean, I'd love you to say the best, the favourite. What is?
Ooh,
Listen out, people.
I wouldn't dare. No, that's not kind.
No, okay, the best experience, or the most interesting, or the funny story.
Oh no, I would actually like to mention a gym. So when I think I was turning 26 or 27, I took myself on a little trip by myself. I went up to Scotland, and a guy from the gym I was affiliated with at that time had said, "Oh, I know some guys up in Glasgow where you're going. It's Ronin Grappling. I don't know if you've spoken to them or you know of them, but it's run by two really lovely people up there who got chatting to me, and it was the day before my birthday. I'd dropped in for a bit like a visitor session, and they were really lovely, and we got chatting, and they actually said, "Oh, we're going on a road trip tomorrow. Do you want to come?" And I thought, that's so kind, isn't it? So I thought, yeah, I'll come on your road trip. Let's go and see some things around Glasgow. So not only did they come and collect me from the tube station, they'd bought me a birthday cake as well,
Oh
and we'd driven
wow!
around and we had a wonderful day. And I just think that's such a nice thing, A, for a person to have done, but B, like, what a wonderful thing that the sport has brought to me. Like, that the community can be so great when you want it to be.
Okay. Note, gym owners, if you receive a message from Rachel Clarke, be
Birthday
prepared.
cakes.
No expectations.
No, I'm not saying that's the benchmark, but it was just a really, really nice gesture, and I recommend their gym all the time now.
Oh, amazing!
Not because I think they're going to give me a birthday cake, but because they were just really lovely.
So that was Scotland. Where else have
Yeah.
you trained in the world?
Well, I've only travelled to UK gyms so far. So I've done 4 contracts at sea. Well, this is my 4th contract at sea now. And my first 2, I bought training gear. And my first 3, I bought the belts. And I thought, I'm going to find a gym. I'm going to go somewhere. I'm going to train. It's going to be great. Especially because a lot of my contracts have been in the US or Hawaii or other places where they speak English, which helps. And I was frantically Googling all these timetables and this and that and that. But there are so many stars that need to align. It's honestly outrageous. So the place has to have a class. And typically, I don't know if you know much about cruises, but we dock from like 6 to 8 in the morning to roughly 6 p.m, 7 p.m. at night. Most classes are in the evening, aren't they? So that's wipes that off. Yep. You then have to have a day that I'm allowed off the ship, and you then have to have a gi class that's going to accept me. It's honestly, it's a nightmare. So I've got a friend who's coming to visit me on port on the ship, and he's going to bring a rash guard for me. So we'll see. Maybe, hopefully, I'll get something squeezed in this European itinerary, but
Amazing.
We'll see.
It does
Dust
sound like
bars.
lots of it actually, I mean, you live your life and it sounds, if you've been on cruise ships, and seen any of the team, kind of, I was going to say in the back office, no,
Mm,
on the ship and kind of working, you're always really
below deck.
busy. But, like in anyone's life, potentially, it's aligning all of those things, the availability, the kit, the location. But,
Mm,
and I think, maybe setting sights on one location. If you were to choose anywhere in the world that you'd like to train, all the stars
mm.
aligning, where would you go?
That's a tricky one. I think maybe Hawaii. I just really like it there. I've already been hiking there. I've been surfing there. Um, it's just a really good, like, really fun place to be. I just think if I went to a Hawaiian Jitsu school, the vibe would just be really good. Just get good
Yeah,
energy from it.
that
I'd pick
sounds good.
Hawaii.
Okay, I might have to add that to my list as well, Rachel.
Take
Uh,
me with you. We'll go together, yeah?
okay, good. Okay,
Road trip.
we're notching up lots of different events and venues. I would
Absolutely.
absolutely love to have a kind of 1 year anniversary party for this
Mm,
podcast. I'd
that
love
would
to
be
do a kind of mat session somewhere. I will be looking for sponsorship. So if anyone's listening to this and has any ideas where we can host something, I mean, it doesn't have to be in the UK.
nice.
Logistics, it might have to be, but who knows if there's some sponsorship and someone that wants to invite us to celebrate 1 year of Jiu Jitsu Lee podcast, I would. My DMs are open.
And
Anyway,
I will be there. That sounds great. Sign me up.
amazing. We're September is the kind of 1 year anniversary, so we're doing all right.
That's where I come home. There you go. Perfect timing. Maybe it's going to happen.
Well, you have to share these things to the universe. So I think
Yeah.
that you're going to end up with an Hawaii Jiu-Jitsu class,
Yeah.
maybe within the next year. And who knows where we'll be for Jiu-Jitsu Lou podcast celebration in September. Anyway,
So in Hawaii.
we've talked about your white belt, Hawaii, yes.
Mm.
Um, we talked about your 19-year white belt journey, and you may not have trained consistently for 19 years. How do you maintain your kind of consistent mindset and outlook and talking so passionately about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu when you may not have been on the mats in months?
Well, I watch a lot of Instagram reels, and I know that's probably controversial, but that
No,
keeps me interested.
that's good.
Um, yeah, and I'm not talking about those well, partly those instructionals that we're never going to copy. That's a main part of it, but also just keeping myself interested. The gossip, the drama, drills that are out there. I do a lot of scrolling for things like that, and I always try and plan something for when I'm coming home, whether that's like visiting a friend's gym or whether that's entering a competition or something like that. So I almost force myself, it's not forcing myself to come back to it because I always want to come back to it. And I think that's because I have been involved with it for quite so long. I
Yeah,
guess it's almost like an integral part of me that it doesn't feel like work to stay consistent with it and to come back to it. I think it also helps me motivated to go to the gym while I'm here because
yeah.
I like jujitsu. I don't particularly like the gym, but if I can
Ooh.
link it back to jujitsu, then I can always convince myself to go. So it's a win-win, really.
That sounds very interesting. I'm now going to pick up on what gym exercises you use to kind of, support your jujitsu kind of training. What would you recommend? I know you're not a fitness instructor. We're not taking any
I'm
health
not.
advice. We're not taking any fitness advice. But what works for you? I'm interested.
Well, do you know what? I've only recently cracked the code, I think. So my first three contracts, you're excited face.
I am. I am.
Your first three contracts, I was just doing like generic cardio, generic weightlifting, and I was telling myself that I was like keeping conditioned.
Yep.
Well, actually, I probably wasn't because I don't necessarily enjoy it. I'm not really putting the effort in. So this fourth contract, I was really fortunate to be gifted a training program from a coach. She does only specialise in healthcare workers. Her name is Neve, the Blue Light Coach, for anyone who's interested, who is a healthcare worker. But I essentially went to her with what I want to achieve, and I sort of talked to her a lot about jiu-jitsu and explained the type of movements we do and what movements are important for me. And she's almost developed me a program which has kept me engaged, and I can sort of link back to jiu-jitsu. And I'm not saying it's the be all and end all, and I'm not saying it's going to work for everyone, but it's a lot of more hit stuff rather than weights, a lot of body weight movements, which I can almost visualize and translate into, is it moves in jiu-jitsu? I guess that's the right wording.
Yes.
I don't really know.
Moves,
yeah, we're sure on that one.
All of those, yes.
Move techniques, whatever. But a lot of that body weight stuff, I think if you unpack the movements you're doing, you can see why it's beneficial, which again keeps you more motivated. And she has helped keep my cardio up because she's having me do things like burpees and squat jumps and stuff like this, which are, I find personally, much more engaging than running on a treadmill. I physically cannot do it. I'll be on there for 2 minutes and I'll think this is the worst and I'll just get off. So I think the key is either to find somebody who can tap into what makes you feel engaged and interested in exercising that isn't the type you want, i.e. grappling. And I honestly think body weight workouts are so underrated. Sweating, I feel stronger, I can link it back to what we're doing on the mats. I think it's so much more translatable, and I think the way I feel about going to the gym now is so different that I think something's got to be going right. Do you know what I mean?
Amazing. I'm gonna take some of the energy that you've just shared for kind of body weight workouts. I'm gonna go back and revisit all my Joe Wick stuff that I was doing in kind of 2019 and potentially have another go. Yes, I think that's a good thing. I always think about kind of technical stand-ups. I was sat on the lawn of a museum this afternoon listening to kind of kids' stories with my 2 young ones, and I was like, I had to do the other hand because obviously I've got one broken, but there was the technical stand-up. It's there to serve you all the time.
100%. That and keeping stretching I found has been really helpful. So I work in a clinic setting, and it's not uncommon that sort of if I've got 10 minutes free in the diary or I've finished clinic and I've closed up my notes or whatever, I'll do a little stretch. Just because if you don't move it, you lose it, don't you?
Absolutely.
And how can I expect myself to come back in 4 months' time and have the same like mobility if I've not put that work in the interim? Do you know what I mean?
I love it. Everybody needs to observe your mindset, your energy, and your passion for training off the mats to prepare on the mats whenever you get there. So tell me when you are getting to the mats. What's next?
Well, I mean, let's see if anything crops up in this itinerary. Maybe I can pop somewhere once I've got this rash guard. We never know. But set in stone plans, my base, I guess, when I come home, I'm potentially moving cities, so I'll be looking for a new gym. I'm not going to say where that is now, just in case it doesn't come to fruition, but I'll be looking to join a new gym, which is really exciting. Like I said, I'm not currently like joined to any gym, so I'm pretty free to go and do whatever. I've got one competition booked so far, and I've got another sat, in Smooth Comp where you haven't paid for it yet, but it's still like pending. Yeah, so I'm sort of umming and ahhing that. The problem is it's late September, and I come home around the 7th, maybe the 8th. So it's a short stint of time. So I'm going to I'll probably get brave and do it, to be honest. And then the other one I've got is in October, and that's in Newcastle. I have a friend that lives up there, and I thought 2 birds, 1 stone. I'll visit my friend, I'll compete jiu-jitsu. I'll catch up with somebody who I've seen at a gym in Newcastle before. It's all a win.
Amazing. Can we come and support you in late September at a competition?
I'd love that, but it is in London. So anybody listening from the London area, look out for me. I should get a little gi patch or something. But have a look out. You're very welcome to come and support me. Medium heavy, masters, white belt. See you there.
Amazing. Rachel, I feel like we need to have another catch up, another episode at some point very soon. Maybe when
Absolutely.
you're back on land for our
Yeah,
celebration of 1 year of Jiu-Jitsu Lou podcast.
perfect.
But for now, wishing you all well in the deep blue sea.
Thank you.
I kind of, I love being at sea. I feel like it,
Yeah,
not that I do it very often. I love getting to the coast, but just having that freedom where sometimes you can't see anything else around you and you can just be in that space. I love it.
yeah, yeah. I feel quite lucky sometimes.
It's amazing. Rachel, how can people get hold of you and follow your journey?
So you can find me on @thecruisingpara on Instagram. That's where I follow. That's where I post most of my sort of like sea updates, my work updates, and how I'm fitting training around being at sea.
Amazing. I will add all of those links to the show notes. So don't miss out. Go and follow Rachel on Instagram and watch out when she's back on land. Rachel, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's been really fun.
Great stuff. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for telling your friends about this show. And as soon as the episode ends, I'd really appreciate you dropping the show a rating and a review. Thanks again for listening. Catch you on the next episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Lou podcast.